There are a couple considerations you need to keep in mind when playing in or trying to run a game in Ptolus. First and foremost, Ptolus is a high fantasy and high magic setting. It's nothing to have a dragon fly over a head, a wizard to use a feather fall spell to drop down from the sky, flying ships, and everything else that you can imagine. If it's in the DMG, if it's in the player's handbook, it has been written into the Ptolus setting. There could be an actual demon walking down the street. You can see all manner of the monsters that could actually be considered NPCs, and you wind up talking to them and not attacking them in the broad daylight of Ptolus. It's a very strange setting for somebody that's used to low magic or where you just hop from small town to small town. So, from a DM standpoint, one of the most important things that you need to think about is the readiness availability of magic items, and then also the readiness and availability of people who can cast healing spells on the party. I'll talk about one major benefit of that in here in a second, but it's something really important to think about. If you are used to where your adventurers go out into the wilderness, if they get hurt and they don't have a cleric with them, they have to limp back to town for several days, then Ptolus is a very strange setting in that regard. I've been running a campaign in Ptolus for 3 years now. We've run parts where the PCs had a cleric with them. We've run parts where they didn't. One great thing about that, I'll mention the benefit, is that you could play a solo adventure very, very easily, a duet game in D&D, if you will, in terms of just the DM and just a player. That's how we started. My very first Ptolus character was just a duet campaign, myself and one player character. And that's okay, because in Ptolus they can delve down into the dungeons below, spend some time down there, get hurt, pop back up, pay a few gold pieces to a cleric, and boom, they're restored. Again, if you're used to that wilderness campaign where they go out and they're out in the wilderness, they don't have ready access to healing magic, they don't have a cleric with them, so they have to come all the way back to the town. Well, Ptolus is very different in that regard. They can go outside the city walls, get hurt, come right back, go to a cleric. They can go down into the dungeons, get hurt, pop back up, go to a cleric. So the downtime and everything, just like with an actual major city, is super, super rapid in terms of the pacing. Because they can go into a dungeon, come right back up to a big, fleshed out city with people that can help them. So I personally see that as a benefit. Again, you can run a much smaller party. If you want to run a 1 or 2 person party in the Ptolus campaign, you can do that because they don't necessarily have to have access to a cleric to travel with them. They can pop right back up, go over to St. Gustav's Cathedral, pay Brother Fabeter a few gold pieces, and they're all healed up again. They go to the tavern, they go to the inn, they have a drink, and then they go to sleep that night in a comfortable bed. It's a very different system than if you're used to hopping from small town to small town. Again, it can have a lot of benefits too. Something else to think about in terms of a high magic setting like this, again, a lot of DMs don't necessarily like the idea of being able to buy and sell magic items. That's readily an option in Ptolus. There's the Undercity where people are selling retired adventurers gear. There's one adventure hook that's just about going to purchase adventuring gear from a woman whose husband died delving into the dungeons below Ptolus. There's Raster's weapons and the Bull and Bear armory and Myreth's oddities and Ebert's Outfitters. Magic items are for sale in Ptolus. So again, you can see this as a detriment, but if you do, then I actually think maybe Ptolus isn't the best city for you because the benefit is your characters get to experience this whole wide world with all of these things available to them, and the option to pop in and pop out, get healed, and go back. However, it does change the way that you're going to run the game in terms of your pacing, in terms of how fast they're going to level up. If they don't have to travel for 3 or 4 days back and forth, it really can ramp up what it seems like is happening to the adventurers and how it happens really, really fast. They could go down, get hurt one day, fight a whole bunch of monsters, pop back up. They go right back down the very next day. It's a little bit different from kind of that standard D&D campaign. But again, I like to see it as actually a good thing. Something else to keep in mind, which I'll probably talk about in a different video, is also there are some new technologies and new pieces of interest and import in Ptolus that are really not present in any other setting. The first and foremost of that is Chaositech. This is actually a whole book that Monty Cook wrote just about chaos technology, Chaositech. That's available and present in the Ptolus world. However, if you don't like that, that is one piece that's actually relatively easy to remove. Something else that's available that's pretty easy to remove is they actually have firearms. I am absolutely not a big fan of firearms in a D&D setting. I even had a high-level elf at one point, an NPC, who anytime that gunpowder came up and existed in the world, he had out-of-world knowledge and an ancient memory where he actually knew the downfalls of those things. He would teleport in, either explain to them the error of their ways, or kill them if necessary, because he saw the ancient history, basically, that he saw what the firearm did to true warriors and users of magic, and so he wouldn't ever let it exist in his plane of existence. I'm allowing it to work in Ptolus because A, I use it very sparingly. B, it's not readily available to the player characters. There is a business called the Smoke Shop in Ptolus where you could technically go and buy a firearm. My characters have gone there, but I set the price points incredibly high. And also, they're incredibly dangerous, which is, again, something that is a little more common in D&D, that if firearms exist, they actually are really dangerous. But that's something else to think about. And again, it would be possible for you to completely remove that component from Ptolus if you so choose. You can let only the bad guys have it, and the first time the PCs use it, the gun breaks, blows up in their face, whatever. However you want to arbitrate that is going to be up to you. But those are two strange elements. There's a few new spells and things like that Monty Cook introduced with the Ptolus books. However, none of those are really campaign breaking or outside the norm of D&D as you're used to seeing it. So again, there's some special things that you need to keep in mind if you're used to that, where they're in a small town, they travel out for days, and then they adventure out there and they have to rest for a few days. You're going to see that whole pace really sped up in terms of they have available access to healing magic. They have available access to walk into a shop and say, can you identify this magic item for me? They also have ready access to place to sell. When you think about the largest metropolis in D&D, where if you go into a dungeon and you come up with a whole bunch of gems that are all worth 100, 200, 300, 400 gold pieces a piece, well, then you as the DM could tell them, okay, you're going to have to travel to a larger city to be able to sell those gems. But there's actually a business right inside of Ptolus that they readily purchase gems. There's some affable dwarves there that are going to be happy to buy them from them. So again, they could go down, find gold pieces, they could find gems, they could find magic items, they come right back up, they immediately sell them, and they're flush with cash. I'm running a relatively wealthy game in Ptolus right now. My adventurers are actually working on buying property. They're actually working on building a property on top of one of the adventure sites that they've already completed. And if you read through the adventures in the Ptolus campaign at the back of the book, you'll see what I'm talking about. There's an empty lot there, and they're actually building a building on top of that. So I'm not terribly afraid of the fact that they have so much wealth. One of the benefits to you as the DM is that if you do have a Monty Hall campaign, then there's lots of places that they can spend a lot of money in the Ptolus city. In the Nobles' Quarters, there's a restaurant where if you go to eat for one meal, you could drop several hundred gold pieces. And so that's one of the other great aspects about it, is even though they may be flush with cash and flush with magic items, there's ways to drain them of that. There's taxes, there's all sorts of different expenses that can come up. There's licensing and permits and all kinds of different stuff that's built into the Ptolus campaign. So it's another really cool way where if you have these PCs that are sitting on mountains of gold in a tiny little town, they're going to wreck the economy if they flood the market with the gold pieces. But in Ptolus, the environment and the economy can readily accept that influx of cash because it's happening all the time from all different kinds of delvers. It's actually a part of the economy. And so that's something else really exciting and really cool about Ptolus. Check out toll.us, ptol.us. That's my website that's showing here. I did build that. Hopefully Monty Cook won't have a problem with it. If you want full DM access to it, you have to register. You'll see here at the very bottom of the website, there's actually a place where you can register. Actually, I think my face is in front of this, but right down below this copyright disclaimer, there's a button that says contact the site owner. You have to prove to me that you either backed Monty's Kickstarter for the 5e and the Cypher system, or you have to show me that you purchased it in the past, a picture of the actual book, DM's Guild, Drive-Thru RPG, whatever. I just want to know for a fact that you own the book before I give you full DM's access. I've put almost the entire Ptolus book in this website. You've got a fully interactive map where you can scroll in, zoom out, scroll around the map, find the items over here. So please take advantage of that. You can also send your players to the player's guide here to check out and even read on their phones, read on tablets. It's all mobile friendly. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments or shoot me a message through the Ptolus website. And I hope you really enjoy and get started in the City by the Spire, and I'd love to hear what you all are doing with it.